And welcome everybody to the Huddle, KG9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Paris. Pat, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jason. I don't know why you're wearing purple too. I don't know why we both wore purple on Kansas State week, but we apparently did on the same day.
I can assure you not much thought went into it.
Mine either. Well, no, that's not true because I'm coming on after the debate tonight with news. I didn't want to wear red or blue, so I combined the two.
All right. I should have gone with my yellow tie and gray suit. I was thinking of going in that direction.
Oh, well.
But anyway, it's our weekly sports talk show. Each week you can comment in the comments section, and hopefully you'll vote in our poll. And we're going to start before we get into the Arizona football and a little bit more in depth last week. We're going to start with our weekly Huddle poll question as Arizona is coming off its 22-10 win over NAU. And there's a reason I did it this way, Pat. And so let me read the question and let me explain why I did it this way. How would you grade Arizona's performance against NAU? Now, one thing you've said, Pat, is sometimes there's a little bit of truth to all of the answers. I wanted to make it where you had to purely pick one and there wasn't, that much truth, right? So each one is more different. Now, there's no way you could give Arizona an A against NAU, right?
You'd have to be
over
like
10 first downs.
You'd have to be like Noah Fafita's grandmother to give him an A, or something.
And there's no way you can give them an F because they won the game.
Correct.
Okay. So then we got a B, C, or a D. We go back to school here. Do you give them a B, good, a C, that's satisfactory, a D, that's poor in my book. Pat, I think I know where you're going, but let me hear what you say.
You do know where I'm going?
Yeah, you're going to go with 2, C.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2. I already did. I already voted. And I think there's an old adage. Somebody said it first, and I wish I was just going to try to look it up, but I don't have time. Better to win ugly than lose pretty. And they won ugly. Certainly things were better in the second half than they were in the first half. First half, it was all defense. Neither team could get much offense going. And then in the second half, Arizona's offense did just enough. And that's kind of the way it shook out. So to me, it was.
By the way, we do want people to vote. So go ahead to the KG9.com and vote. Sorry, Pat, keep going.
No, and I get it. It's an A grade, a B grade, a C grade, a D grade, or an F. And I can't give them a D because they played poorly at times, but as a whole for the entire game, I thought they did just okay.
Yeah, the reason why I'm going with 2C as well, Pat, is because when the defense pitches a shutout in the second half, and the only touchdown you give up, the only score you really give up is on a quasi trick play.
Right.
Then I think you give them a C, but in no way do you give them a B when you go for 10 on third down and the offensive line plays the way it does. So This video right here is the turning point of the game. They're down 10-6, third quarter. Fafita is sacked, terrible sack. They takes him out of field goal range. They would have had to punt to NAU. Instead, a personal foul on a face mask, which they didn't need to sack Fafita, comes back here, throws the touchdown to Jeremiah Patterson, and Arizona takes the lead and never relinquishes it. That was the absolute biggest turning point of the game. That was the moment of the game. If not for that face mask, all of a sudden, Pat, the doubts would have started to creep in. Oh, my goodness. Here we are from 3 years ago. NAU's got a 10-6 lead. It's the third quarter. They've got the ball, and Arizona hasn't scored a touchdown. To me, that was the biggest play of the game.
Yeah, that was definitely the turning point. You and I were texting about it at the time, and I think it was a turning point. I'll say this: it was never the sense that, oh, here we go again. This is that NAU game. How long ago? It was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when Arizona, as you pointed out correctly to me, is Arizona was rebuilding. Jed Fish had just gotten there, and they lost, and that was an embarrassing loss to an NAU team that I didn't think was very good at all, and proved it not to be very good. I think this NAU team's actually decent. I think that you can make a lot of excuses. There aren't any excuses. Arizona just didn't play very well. But I never got the sense, back to my original point, I never got the sense that they were going to lose this game. I just thought it was going to be a real, grind it out kind of game. Fortunately, they had a turning point like that. They were able to then kind of steamroll them for a little while, and then they just kind of played out the clock.
Yeah, we should have some other highlights of the game too. That's the touchdown of Jeremiah Patterson that we can show you as Arizona holds on for the win. Yeah, the difference is a much different situation than 3 years ago. Okay, 3 years ago, Arizona football was in a 20. Here's the game highlights. Arizona football was on a 20-game, middle of a 20-game losing streak. Okay, they didn't have any players. This was a year zero for Jed Fish. This is a completely different situation. This team is coming off the Alamo Bowl championship win. This team has 3 first-round picks, according to ESPN. I couldn't believe it. I did not know that Tacario Davis was rated that high. Jonas Savanea, who was out of position on the offensive line on Saturday night, he's a first-round pick. And, of course, Teteroa McMillan is a first-round pick. For them to have 3 first-round picks and struggle at home against NAU is kind of bizarre. And I know a lot of it is on the offensive line, and they've got some injuries.
There's a lot of that on the offensive line, yeah.
They should not have struggled that much with NAU. And Pat, I want to give you this analogy and see what you think of it. When we see Tommy Lloyd's teams very early in the year, they pass the eye test right away. It's like, whoa, this team's a little better than we thought. These guys are good. They're running these teams out of the gym, right? And then they've gone on to have regular seasons where they've been, I think, the 1, 2, and the 2 seed in 3 regular seasons. This Arizona football team has not really passed the eye test the first couple games.
They didn't pass the eye test on defense. On the first game, they certainly did offensively. The second game, you'd say reverse. I think the defense.
I don't know, Pat. Do you take away Teteroa McMillan?
Well, how do you take away Teteroa McMillan? I mean, that's ridiculous.
But he was not like he was. It's not like Fafita was dishing the ball around and they were just clicking on offense, Pat. This is a situation where it was just him and McMillan playing throw and catch, like in the backyard.
No, they ran the ball.
The whole offense they didn't have any running yards the first half.
They had 2 50-yard runs in the second half for touchdown. Like they had 2 huge runs for touchdowns. I don't think you can say that.
Yeah, this team has not passed the eye test. This football team.
That might be. You might. Your point is well taken. They haven't passed the eye test. Certainly on all 3 phases of the game in one game. But I think you've got to eventually put this behind you, Jason, because they have, and you got to look at Kansas State. And to me, we'll know so much more. And we said this before the season even started. We're going to know so much more after the Friday night game in Manhattan, Kansas against Kansas State than we will in the first 2 games. That's just the way college football is. You can say that about any top 25 team right now. You don't, unless they played another top 25 team or in a case of Notre Dame lost to a team that they shouldn't have lost to. Unless that happens, you don't really know much about your team. And we'll know much more coming up on Friday.
Well, I think we know they've got some issues on the offensive line, like I said.
And now, hopefully, they get that fixed by the return, and health of the offensive line. If that gets back sorted out to the way it was in the first, half of the New Mexico game, then that was Plan A, and they'll be on schedule for Plan A.
And I don't think this offense has found a rhythm, despite what you're saying about week 1. One of those touchdowns, the receiver fell down. I mean, the defender fell down.
Yeah, but that happened.
Okay. I mean, and he has not been spreading the ball around to different receivers.
Well,
I think that
did a little bit more this
has run well at times, and I think obviously, T-Mac had the great first game when he was single covered. All of a sudden, in the second game, NAU has a little bit of an answer defensively with some help in the secondary, and it's a different situation. Now, even though T-Mac only had 2 or 3 catches the other night, he still influenced the game because he caused a couple of pass interference penalties, and he always does that. So even when McMillan doesn't put up big numbers, he still has a big influence in the game. But I don't think that offense was really clicking in either of those 2 games.
And I think Jason will be the first one to tell you, and I think he has said it, that they haven't, and they need to find the rhythm, he keeps saying, and I think that'll come. It has to start up front, though. They have to be healthy on the front 5 with that offensive line, and if they're going to keep Big Jonah over on the left side, then the other guys have to through reps have to get better, and so they can solidify that. If they get healthy, then we won't have to worry about it as much. I think that all that'll come over time. Do I think they're even close to being a finished product? No, not even close. But I still think that the level of improvement will be there, hopefully between this week and next week, and the best football by far is yet to come. I think we can all agree with that the potential is there for this team to be a lot better than they've shown in the first 2 weeks.
Arizona football has the longest winning streak in the nation. That's 9 games dating back to last year. They were 3-3 last year, won their final 7, including the Alamo Bowl, and 2 wins here. That's certainly gotten some attention. You can't tell me that Kansas State doesn't know 14th ranked team in the country is Kansas State. They don't know that the team coming in ranked 20th has the longest winning streak, and they're not going to be ready waiting for that. This is not officially a Big 12 game because this was a game that was on the schedule before Arizona switched conferences. So this is actually one of their 3 non-conference games officially before Big 12 play starts. But it's Big 12 competition, and it matters for the rankings. And if you still have a thought that you want to see Arizona in the college football playoff, you got to get into the top 12.
And if the Big 12 is thinking, right now what they have 5 teams ranked in the top 25, but only the top 12 make it in. And right now they're kind of fringe with, a Utah, a Kansas State sitting here at 14. If Arizona wants to be even in consideration, these are the kinds of games they have to win. And same for K-State. So that's why this game is very big, even though it's not technically going to count in the standings of the Big 12, but
because of the rankings, to me, it's a Big 12 game. And
I think it is too. I think it is.
You're not going to. This game matters. This game matters. You're not going to play, I don't think, much differently than this than you are later in the season.
And here's one of those situations too, Jason. And I'm not going to blame the new conference. They Arizona had to travel. They had to go to road games and things like that. But this is a pretty early game for them to go to a difficult place to get to, and that's Manhattan, Kansas. You and I were, going over. I was trying to tell you because I've been at Manhattan, Kansas. I ran track there in college, and so against Kansas State, I didn't run for Kansas State, obviously, but it's a trip. I'm telling you, if you go into Kansas City, you got to drive. I think it's at least an hour and a half, if not more, to get out to Manhattan. If you fly into Topeka, that's a tough place to get into. And then you still got to drive probably 45 minutes, a half hour, 45 minutes to get to Manhattan to get to K-State. It's not an easy trip. It's not an easy place to play. It's got a great fan base, and it's literally the only game in town, Jason. Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, they call it, is a college.
Is that what they call it?
That they call it the Little Apple. It's a college town, just like the Mid-America, the quintessential Midwestern college town. That's Manhattan, Kansas, and they'll be clad in purple, and they'll be loud, and they'll be supporting their team. As you mentioned, they're a top 25 team too, number 14 in the country. They fully expect to be in the at the top of the Big 12 standings, and for them, Arizona stands in their way.
We're looking at Avery Johnson. He's the Kansas State quarterback. Apparently, he's got a very good arm. He is a sophomore. Was the MVP of the bowl game. I think it was the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I think, if I'm not mistaken, last year at the end of the game. He's done well. A little bit of a dual threat, but there were some comparisons between him and Devin Dampier, the New Mexico quarterback who was here a couple weeks ago. And Brent Brennan was asked about that and said, no, this guy's more of a complete quarterback with his arm. So, that was interesting to hear that. So that's who they're going to be going up against here on Friday night.
We have a commenter that points out that K-State's not an easy place to play, but we have players that have played in louder environments than that. And
they went to Mississippi State last year. How easy is that to get to? Is that really, does that really affect how much you're going to play? I mean, these are college kids. They got plenty of time to get there all day Thursday.
It's a short week, though. I guess I should have thrown that in. That's a little bit of a the Friday night game. Not a big fan of the Friday night games. I know why they do it.
Oh, it's national TV, right? This is the Fox game.
That's why they do it, and I get it. It's just another thing you have to take into account. Both teams have to do it. I understand that, but you'd rather be the home team on a Friday night game than the team that has to travel from Tucson to Manhattan, Kansas.
First of 2 Friday night games for Arizona on the schedule this year. A schedule that looks much different than the schedules that look like for this last several decades. All these teams you see on it.
It does, but you remember the Pac-12 started playing some Friday night games too, and that was that's kind of the byproduct of, if you're not the SEC or the Big Ten, you've got to find ways to get on national TV, and for the Big 12. we found out on Saturday night, if you weren't at the game, you had to watch it on your phone, right, on ESPN Plus. So it's just these are different ways you have to watch it, and for them to get on national TV, it means playing on Friday night. Now, this happens to be a matchup this year, just because it's 14 versus 20. It might have made it, if it was scheduled for Saturday, it might have made it on as one of the network national games anyway. But
yeah, you don't like seeing college football on Friday nights. It competes with high school football.
I know. I don't like it. I just don't like
it. It's and then it's like, well, how are these kids who they're recruiting? I mean, they're going to be playing on Friday night. Are they really going to be watching? Right. So I think the reason why you haven't seen Arizona play national games the last few years is because they weren't exactly picked by the networks to do that. After how they've been for a few years until last year. Right. So yes, it's a nice little coup to be on national TV. Better to be on this way, I guess, than not at all. I just don't think you're going to be, it's going to help in recruiting. Unless it's an 8th grade kid down the road or something who's not playing on a Friday night. But Friday nights are really, to me, reserved for.
It should be. Should be that way. I mean, it's always traditionally Friday, high school, Saturday, college, Sunday, NFL. But now you see Thursday night games for both college and for the NFL. And, we saw the Monday game a week and a half ago for LSU when they lost. So, yeah, it happens.
Jason Barr, Pat Paris, this is the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly sports talk show. Let's jump back into our Huddle poll question and see how we're doing here as far as how did Arizona play against NAU. And it looks like the majority of people are giving it a C. I think that's really the safe one. Maybe I could have gone C plus C and C minus and see what it would have been there. But we went with B, C, and D. And I think you and I seem to be consensus here with giving them the C. So we thought that'd be a little bit different as a Huddle poll question. It's not something we've really done before. But Arizona puts their 9-game winning streak on the line. Let's take a look at some of our comments here. Daily Sports Report, I think C from the game on Saturday. That's what most people say. And that's kind of consensus. Oh, C minus. Okay, thank you.
C minus. Yeah,
I'm fine with. Hey, listen. Yeah. I'm fine with C minus. I'm fine. You know what? I would probably lean, if I had to go C minus or C plus, and I had to pick one of the two, I'd go C minus.
If that was the only two choices, I'd probably go C minus too. But I think they're a solid C. That's as I said,
all these penalties are on the head coach. They're 6th worst in the nation as far as giving up penalty yards.
There's
no question. You're not playing disciplined football. That's on the head coach.
But I will say this, Jason. I agree with Brent Brennan in this sense, and that is the pre and post snap penalties are unacceptable, and that's what you have to drill in with the players. If you're a coach, the penalties that sometimes happen during the actual play itself, those happen so fast that kids make mistakes, and they're 20-year-old kids. They make mistakes.
Yeah, if you're holding to prevent a touchdown.
NAU grabbed a face mask on, and it was, as you pointed out, it was one of the turning points of the game, if not the turning point of the game. Those kind of things happen, and you have to live with that. Now, do you still go over and tell the player, don't do that? Sure you do, but you understand the in the middle of the play penalties. It's the pre-snap and especially the boneheaded personal foul penalties after the whistle that you just can't tolerate. And they clean that up, and they got to continue to emphasize that. And you can't keep having 10 penalties a game, Jason, and expect to win. You just can't do it.
I think it was Steve Spurrier. I hope I have the right coach here. What he would do is, if an offensive lineman had a false start, he would make the offensive lineman run off the field back to the sideline and be replaced for the play as a form of embarrassment, so that the offensive lineman wouldn't do it because it would be so embarrassed to have to run off the field. Yeah. Hey, this is the take I disagree with Daily Sports. I mean, the offense was great in the first half, and the defense was great in the second half.
First game.
That first game. Thank you. And the defense was great in the second. I don't think the offense was so great in the first half. I think T-Mac and Noah Fafita were great. Okay. And I think that Quali Conley had a good, second half when the game started getting going, but they couldn't run the ball in the first half. And it's not like Fafita was getting the ball to other players. The offense is great is an offense that's clicking. It's the quarterback throwing it around to different receivers. It's the running game going throughout the whole game.
See, I
think they were great in parts, but I don't think we're over this business that they were overall great. And then when the game gets broke, and they put 61 points on. Okay, sure, that's certainly great. But that, to me, it's not a clicking. And the reason why I believe I'm right is because of how they looked in the second game.
No, see, we disagree completely there. I do think the offense was clicking for a first game, especially they were clicking, and you don't throw 4 touchdown passes to a guy, almost have a fifth, throw for a school record yard total. What was the total? 200 and whatever, 304 yards. To me, you can't downgrade an offense and say they weren't clicking when a guy catches 304 yards worth of passes and 4 touchdowns.
That's 2 players who are clicking, Pat.
So what? That's you take.
But it doesn't work the next week when New Mexico put one guy. They put one guy on T-Mac and said, "Hey, have at it, bud."
The defense is giving you. If the defense would have clamped down on T-Mac, sure, he would have thrown to other guys because he had all day in that game. He didn't have any time in the NAU game. He had all day in the New Mexico game. So he would have found somebody else. Somebody else would have been open. But why would he go away from his best friend?
All right, let's finish it up, Pat. I would be very surprised if Arizona won this game. I think it's just a tough spot, tough place to play, as you mentioned. 9-game winning streak. Team sitting there waiting for you. Pumped up for a team to have a 9-game winning streak come to their facility. You can't win every single game. I think this is a tough spot for Arizona. I would be very, very pleasantly surprised if they won this game. And that's why they're 7.5-point underdogs too.
Yeah, no, there's.
How often is a 9-game winning streak a 7.5-point underdog?
This would be an upset if they were to pull off this win because they're going on the road. They're 7.5-point dogs. I get it. Would I be surprised? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think K-State's as good as maybe number 14 in the country. They certainly didn't look it in their last game against Tulane.
They got bailed out with that controversial pass interference play. That was not pass interference. That should have been a game-time touchdown for Tulane.
If they come into this game 1-1, having lost that game, I know they didn't lose it, but then you're and everybody else is looking at this a little bit differently. But because they get bailed out and they win that game, they're 2-0 instead of being 1-1, and everybody's got them a 7.5-point favorite. If for Arizona to win this game, Arizona has to play both sides of the football very well, combining the first game and the second game, offense first game, defense second game, and then Kansas State has to be the team that I think Kansas State is, and then Arizona has a chance. That's a
little bit more creativity on offense too.
Well, don't forget, Jason, they rested a lot of players in this game against NAU. They didn't show anything in this game against NAU whatsoever as far as plays. They just decided we're going to try to pound the ball down up the middle. We're going to run. We don't want to show anything. We don't want to do anything. They were very vanilla. I don't
believe in that though, Pat. This not showing anything, because when you show something, then all of a sudden a team's got more to prepare for, and it's like the reverse that Jed Fish tried every single week last year until it worked, right? With the pass back and then T-Mac threw the touchdown pass. They showed that every week, and then it finally worked in like week 6 towards the end of the year. I don't believe in this not showing anything. But we'll see with the play call.
We'll see, but I would say this, Jason, if you got those 2 game films to look at, if you're K-State, okay, we got to deal with T-Mac, and then we got to stuff the middle because they're just going to run the ball at the middle. Well, what if Arizona doesn't do any of that early on in this game and they don't throw to T-Mac? T-Mac's a decoy. What if they don't just pound the ball up the middle? What if they, end up spreading the ball around a little bit to the different receivers and tight ends, and then they run the ball a different way outside? That's the kind of thing you can't prepare for everything. So what do? You prepare for what you think they're going to do, and probably not going to do what they think they're going to do. That's my guess. We'll see.
We'll be back here next week to talk about it and have some fun doing so. This has been the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. For Pat Paris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you right back here next week.